Hey there, welcome to the CMMC Compliance Guide Podcast. I'm Austin.
And I'm Brooke.
From Justice IT Consulting, where we help businesses like yours navigate CMMC and NIST 800-171 compliance. We're hired guns getting companies fast-tracked to compliance. But today, we're here to give you all the secrets for free, so if you want to tackle it yourself, you're equipped to do so. Let's dive into today's episode and keep your business on track. Today, we're unpacking the big headlines from CyberAB's September 2025 Town Hall. From the final rule to the service provider risks, new compliance requirements, and what it means for primes and subs, this session has a lot of takeaways. Let's start with a big one. The final Title 48A rule is now published. What does that even mean?
It means that 48 CFR that we've been talking about that puts CMMC in place on contracts has been published. It was published on September 10th, and they gave it a 60-day period until it goes into effect. So on November 10th, this goes into effect. And there's 4 phases. First phase goes into effect on November 10th. The next phase, phase 2, goes into effect on November 10th, 2026. This first phase, it's largely what you're doing right now, except that you have, there's some more teeth in it, and there's also definite timeline that you have to be compliant. It also means that there's a definite timeline on the prime contractors. And so the prime contractors very well may be, how should I say it, more and more pushy, I guess, trying to get their subcontractors to be level 2 certified. May at some point require it before the federal government actually does. So level 2 certification won't actually be required on a contract technically until November 10th, 2026. But with primes, it very likely is going to be sooner with that for their subs. That's the big news for the 48 CFR.
I also heard there was some confusion on when certification is needed, proposal versus award.
It's going to be needed at award, and they'll check on that at award and make sure that you have your certification. The other thing is they've specified you need to have your cage codes right and all that, but there's another piece in there that's associated with it in SAM.gov, for instance, anyway, your unique entity ID. You need to make sure that that's entered right. You need to make sure those 2 pieces of information correct. They have all the right information in there, especially whenever you get your level 2 certification, that those are correct. So when they get uploaded, make sure that they show up and they match correctly. If they don't, then you're going to have some problems getting awarded some contracts, and you don't want that.
You had mentioned earlier that primes might be getting a little pushy when it comes to compliance. So the town hall made it clear that the primes are responsible for the entire supply chain. How big of a deal is that?
It's a huge deal, but it's really nothing that has changed, really. It's just changed, I guess, in enforcement. So the flow down rule has always been there. Primes are supposed to make sure that their subcontractors were the same level of compliance as them as far as a specific contract goes, right? And work on that contract. And then those subcontractors were supposed to do the same. That's always been there, hadn't changed, but this specifically spelled out and said, hey, by the way, you need to make sure you're doing this. So guess what? You need to make sure you're doing this. So not only do the primes need to make sure that their subcontractors are compliant where they need to be compliant at level 1, level 2 assessment or level 2 certification, whatever it is, they need to make sure that their subcontractors are compliant, but then subcontractors also need to make sure that their subcontractors that are working on any of those particular contracts that have CUI, they need to make sure that they're compliant as well, which is going to likely cause some big problems. Interestingly enough, it'll cause big enough problems in the manufacturing, but that'll actually cause bigger problems in construction. Well, there's construction projects that include CUI, all the subcontractors. I mean, think about it. I'll just leave the obvious unsaid, but all those subcontractors that are used would have to be that get that CUI would have to be level 2 certified. So that's an even taller ask of the construction industry than it is the manufacturing industry. So big deal.
From what I heard on the town hall, it seems like they really emphasize that compliance isn't just a 1-year thing. It sounds like that might have been brought up. Can you address that?
Absolutely. And this is another one of those things that has not changed. They're just specifically calling out and saying, hey, by the way, you look at the way the NIST 800-171 is written, just that, leave out CMMC, just the NIST 800-171, look at how it's written. And it's all about ongoing compliance, ongoing management, ongoing monitoring. So it's not a set and forget it. It's not to get everything in place and just don't worry about it any longer. It is an ongoing, monitored, managed compliance is what it is, and they're just reminding everybody of that because I think people are finding out, that hey, we can't just implement a tool or two and then forget about it. It's a whole deal.
I spent a lot of times working with new and prospective customers, and I think that is one of the biggest pills they have to typically swallow, is that just what the full breadth of burden is.
Yes.
For compliance. The documentation, a lot of people come to us for documentation first, and that's a whole nother thing. It's a whole thing by itself, but then the documentation, once you put it together, if you put it together correctly, it says all these things that you have to do and all these money you have to spend.
It does.
It's typically, when someone's first on the start of their compliance journey, it is not necessarily something they understand. Even if they intellectually understand it at first, it doesn't really hit them until later.
Yeah, that has a tendency of not really sinking in, even though that you talk about it. It sinks in, it hits them later.
Yeah.
Oh, so really, what you were talking about when you said that was blah blah blah. Yes.
Yeah.
It's ongoing. You have to keep it up. There's a lot of work involved. So yes.
Another thing that always comes up, and there's a lot of confusion and misnomers about, I think, is service providers, of which we fall under that umbrella term.
ESP is not a CSP, is
ESPs.
what we are. Yeah.
Right. And speaking of, there was a lot of discussions about CSPs, MSPs, and ESPs
Yes.
on the
Yes,
town hall.
there
So
is.
what can you tell us what that discussion was and what the risks are here?
Absolutely. Yeah, so to clarify, there's an ESP is an external service provider, right? Okay. And that is any company or service that an OSC, organization seeking certification. So anybody that wants to be compliant, right? Any company that wants to be compliant. If you use a third party to do anything for you, that is an external service provider. So if you use somebody to back your systems up, secure your systems, anything else like that, then that's an external service provider. There's a whole big category of ESPs, external service providers, and then within that, you've got CSPs, MSPs, MSSPs, you name it. But the way the federal government looks at it is there are, among the ESPs, there are CSPs, which is a cloud service provider. Okay, think of Microsoft 365. Think about Google. Those are CSPs. Mm-hmm. That's an easy one to look at and kind of figure that out. And then everything else, other than a CSP, is called an ESP, not a CSP. So, which really, kudos to the government, I guess. They, that's very descriptive. It's just a weird name to name something, right? But that's fine. So you got CSPs and ESPs, not a CSP. So things that fall into that category are going to be managed service providers like us, MSPs. They're going to be managed security services providers, MSSPs, stuff like that. So and those are the two most common what you're going to find. Mm-hmm. But there's a little bit of a confusion as to whether a MSP or an MSSP and what circumstances they might be a CSP.
One lead assessor told me, I forget who this was, but that a CSP, if just kind of like a rule of thumb, and you might correct this might be wrong, but it was an assessor. And he said that basically if you could go turn on cloud services by yourself in some form of like portal or instant access, then that's a CSP. But if like you have an MSP that does it on your behalf, there's no like ability to do it, like it's all provided, managed by the service provider, then that's kind of the distinction that he thought was a good one. I don't know if that's accurate, but
that's a good distinction. Yeah. Although that might be confusing for some because a lot of them they're MSP managed as their their CSP licensing. So,
Right.
So that might be a little confusing to some, but that's basic. That's a pretty good explanation. So that's what a CSP is going to be. An MSP or an MSSP is going to be somebody that provides you a service. They back up for you, or they provide security for your laptops or something like that. They may provide some of those CSP services, but at that point, your MSP, if they provide those services for you, they should know whether those are going to contain CUI or SPA or SPD or whatever they may contain, and whether they need to be FedRAMP or whether they need to be whether they don't necessarily need to be FedRAMP, but they'll be included on the assessment and will be assessed and need a CRM or a customer responsibility matrix. So there's a whole bunch of it matters a whole bunch whether you're a CSP or an ESP, not a CSP. Mm-hmm. So CSPs are going to, if they contain CUI, they're going to have to be a FedRAMP authorized or FedRAMP equivalent. Okay, ESP's not a CSP. They're going to have to make sure you're going to have to make sure that they provide you a shared responsibility matrix or a customer responsibility matrix, whatever you want to call it, SRM or CRM for short. The government is now calling it a CRM, which is why we started calling it a CRM. So you need to have one of those in place from your MSP or MSSP or other ESP that is not a CSP. Need to have that in place and make sure that that everything is covered there, and they'll be assessed against those controls. One other thing, really, that I just realized is that if an MSP or MSSP holds CUI, processes, stores, or transmits CUI, then they're going to fall in the category of having to meet all 110 controls of CMMC. Mm-hmm. So all 320 assessment objectives. However, if that so if they hold CUI, that's going to be like if the MSP is the ones that store your backups on their equipment, then at that point they'll have CUI in their possession, even if it's encrypted. It'll still CUI, as we've discussed before, and they'll have to meet all 110 controls. There are other examples too, but that's the easiest one to think about is if they're hosting your backup. So if they just have access to it, it's not the same thing. So if they're managing that backup, making sure it happens, making sure it completes, making sure they can restore, that's a different ballgame. But if they are storing that, mostly storing, but process storing or transmitting that CUI for you in form of a backup, then they need to they'll have to meet all 110 controls. Otherwise, if they don't, and they're just handling security protection data, and I think I just said SPD a while ago, so SPD is security protection data. If they're just handling that, then they just have to meet the controls for which they're providing to you. For instance, antivirus on workstations or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. I was reading some LinkedIn posts, and it's real funny because people get really almost like political about CUI and CMMC and the decisions that are made by the powers that be. Anyway, and someone was being very critical of the fact that access does not require level 2 certification for MSPs. And so I just thought that was interesting because it makes sense to me. I mean, if you're not holding the football, right, you just have access to it, then it makes sense that you could use a MSP that's not certified themselves, mm-hmm, if what they're providing to you follows all the controls, which is ultimately the goal of the compliance, right? So it's not to get everyone certified, it's to protect the CUI and the data, and that's the goal, I think. It is. So, and I think it's just really important that at the end of the day that we go back to intent and because people get real caught up in, like I said, all this weird political and I call it political, but anyway, people hold a lot of biases about CUI and compliance and everything. But really, at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is just protect CUI with good cybersecurity hygiene, and it's just I think a little commentary for me. I find it funny how I guess religious people get about it.
Right. One thing I might add is that because I said something about it a minute ago, and you did too just now. But if an MSP has to be does hold some of that CUI, or if they provide a lot of security and they'll be assessed, just SPD, they'll be assessed on a lot of those controls, whether it's all of them or a lot or whatever, however many it may be. That MSP has to kind of think about how many clients they have that are DIB clients and are going to need this, and how many times they want to undergo those assessments, because you'll have to provide documentation and all sorts of other fun stuff. And you'll have to spend time with your client and answer questions. How many times are you going to want to go through that? Or would you rather go get a level 2 certification and be a level 2 certified and be able to say, yep, here's my paper right here. I'm level 2 certified. Now, that doesn't mean that all assessors are just going to go, okay, no problem. They'll still have to check into some things. And if they have warm fuzzies from the things they check into, most likely the controls and assessment objectives, that is, most likely they won't see the need to dig anymore, right? And they'll take your level 2 certification at face value. But anyway, that level 2 certification likely would make it quicker and easier on the assessors doing the assessment, and quicker and easier on the MSP as well.
Yeah, it's we're down here in Texas, and anyway, so we have this thing called concealed carry, and so if I'm just thinking of
where's this going?
I'm thinking of a funny anyway, something that's like, when if you have a concealed carry, you've been federally background checked, right? And so if you have a license, it's if you get pulled over and you don't have one, the police officer is a little more suspicious of you than whenever you get pulled over and you're like, oh, here's my concealed carry. They're just handing them a background check. So they typically take the traffic stop a little more lightly, although not that they have to perform their job any differently. It's just kind of, helps grease the gears a little bit. And it's kind of like that, where...
Which you wouldn't really understand if you didn't live in Texas or one of the other states where you have a LTC.
Right. But the point is, it's you don't need the certification, but as an MSP, and you don't have to get rid of your IT provider if they don't have one. But it certainly greases the gears, and it makes things easier. And then you also, like you alluded to earlier, that MSP is going to have to be a part of your assessment. And so if you're their only client that has this burden of compliance, then that might be a bit of a burden to them. They may not, and it's going to cost. And so you should probably approach them about how much it's going to cost to, carry that burden. And if they don't charge you, they might be a little, it's not going to be fun for them, right? To have to provide all that information and everything. So I guess what I'm getting after is, it's good to have a MSP that's level 2 and certified, I should say. And they don't have to, but if they're not going to be, you really need to, because you're going to be married to them, you really need to have those discussions and be like, look, this level 2 assessment is really going to be a pain in the rear. Can you do this? It's going to take a lot of time. How much more are you going to charge me? Yada yada, and make sure that they're really going to be there for the full extent of your relationship and stick around. And it's not something they're going to get tired of very quickly and drop you as a client, because then you're kind of in a bad spot.
Yeah, and what I might also say to that is, if you're looking for an MSP, there aren't very many right now that are level 2 certified. If you find one that's level 2 certified, that's even better, or on the path to be level 2 certified, that's good. They, at the very least, that MSP or MSSP, anybody that provides you any services as an ESP, if they're not FedRAMP, if it's not a CSP, then any of those folks are going to need to give you a shared responsibility matrix or a customer responsibility matrix, SRM or CRM. That is the lowest bar to provide there, and it needs to be a NIST 800-171 based responsibility matrix, not just a generic one. Right?
Not one they put in ChatGPT and then sent over to you.
Exactly. So, there needs to be thought behind it, because they're saying these are the controls that we cover. This is your responsibility for these controls. These are our responsibility, and so it lines it out there and spells it out, and that's what the assessor wants to see. Mm-hmm. And even if you do have somebody that is level 2 certified, you still need that. So it's not anything. That's just a basis of what you need from your provider.
Yeah, so that's another really good, talking about if they're not certified, that's another very strong question to lead with. Not even, that might give you an idea of, if they say they're committed to going through this with you, then immediately ask them for an SRM or CRM,
right.
Because then that'll be a good litmus test of if they're, if they actually are, because they may not have realized, what the true breadth of the burden is going to be for having you as a client. And so asking them for that CRM, SRM will really tell you whether they are going to stick around, and also tell them I might want to reevaluate my situation.
Right.
Yeah. Talking of the government shutdown, what is the risk to CMMC in this whole process? What are the implications going to be for the defense space?
The biggest risk for CMMC for the government shutdowns is going to be Tier 3 background checks for CCPs and CCAs. That's CMMC certified professionals and CMMC certified assessors. So those Tier 3 background checks that you have to get, those will likely be delayed. Hopefully not very long. But what I can tell you is it took me 10 months to get mine.
And there wasn't a government shutdown.
And there was not a government shutdown. Maybe I was a strange character and they really needed to check into me, but mine took about 10 months. They are taking 6 to 10 months right now or so. But as of today, the government has shut down. So that tells you when we recorded this, as opposed to when it's uploaded. But as of today, the government shut down. We'll see how long it's shut down, but it will affect Tier 3 background checks. There's a small likelihood that it could affect when it goes into when the 48 CFR goes into effect. It's already published. It's already live as of September 10th. They put a 60-day date on it, so November 10th of 2025. It'll go into effect. There's not really a reason for it not to go into effect on November 10th, but stranger things have happened. So that may be affected. Kind of doubt it, but that's possible. There could be some other background things that happen. All the assessments they'll keep going as is. Government shutdown doesn't matter because they're not government employees. So the C3PAOs will keep doing their job. All that'll keep trudging along. There could be some of the pieces in the background they upload to a system called EMAS. There could be some of that in the background where if they have some issues, they need to talk to somebody or something that it may be delayed. But that's just a possibility. So those are the reasons. Those are the things that the government shutdown may affect as far as CMMC goes. Mostly it's some inside baseball, like I said, with the CCPs and CCAs not getting their Tier 3 background checks in a, quote, timely manner.
Yeah, because 6 to 10 months is really timely.
6 to 10 months is, yeah. So that's the biggest thing right there, though.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know how this works particularly, and we may need to talk to a C3PAO. So I'm not sure if you know this either, but whenever you get a certification, or you have a provisional certificate or something from the assessor themselves, and then it has to go through the powers that be in the government for them to like finalize it, right? So does the uploading to EMAS have to take place for that provisional kind of status before you get your final certification status, or can you go through the assessment and then you're just provisional because the C3PAO said you're provisional? And I know I'm using the wrong words there because I don't know what it is, but I know that's kind of the basic structure of it.
So the way I understand it is that once you pass once the C3PAO says you're good, you passed, you're good, you passed. Okay. But it does need to be uploaded into EMAS. There's no actual certificate right now. They're supposed to be coming up with their certificate, an official certificate that they give you, although from what I understand, you're not supposed to show that certificate to anyone. So what the heck that matters, I don't really know. But so all that should be good. The only question is it flowing through the systems properly after it's uploaded to EMAS. So so there may be some issues there, but once you get assessed by your assessor and your C3PAO says you're good, you passed, then you're good and you passed. It's just got to flow through the systems.
Yeah, so I guess if you're going through that process right now, great question for your C3PAO.
Yeah, it is,
of which
that
we're
is
not.
A great question, and I should know the answer to that one, but I don't think it's called a provisional.
Yeah, I know it's not called provisional. Yeah. I just cannot remember the name of it. Yeah, but we're more on the readiness side, getting you. And then we pass the baton off to the C3PAO. So
right.
That's a bit where our expertise drops off. So just a question as far as impact goes. So really it sounds like, unless you're one of the few that's going through an assessment right now, great question for your C3PAO, which they'll probably have a decent answer for. But really the other main impact is for everyone else, the lion's share of people, is that the pipeline of CCAs and CCPs, which means, people that are able to certify you and people like us that are able to get you to the point at which you can get certified, just got paused. More or less, that's mostly on the assessment side. So really the biggest impact would be that there just may be less people able to help as more people come into the professional labor side of CMMC things to help get the defense base up to snuff.
Right.
But really, unless this goes on really long time, that should be something you don't really feel at all. So,
right.
No.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but I don't think these government shutdowns last too awful long. So really,
a couple weeks at the most, if I remember right.
And the whole scheme of things, as far as your Tier 3 certifications or Tier 3 background investigations go, if it's 6 to 10 months on average, a few days or a week or a couple of weeks, is not going to change that a lot. I wouldn't think. I mean, that just means they'll build up and they'll have more to go through, but they'll go through them at the same pace they've been going through them once they start again. So there will be a little bit of a delay, but in the whole scheme of things, if it's adding, a couple of weeks on to 6 to 10 months, it's not that much of a difference. So.
Absolutely, especially when most of the industrial base out there still has, yet to go through it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So we're more or less in the same spot. I know people really love to grasp onto anything that could mean that CMMC isn't going to happen or whatever else, but it doesn't seem like government shutdown's the one to
right.
make it stop. So,
no, I agree.
So what other updates have I missed from the town hall that you saw?
There's new hires. There are new hires, including Kat Adams as conformity credentialing coordinator, and Christopher Davis as interim CFO. So there's that one. The ecosystem does continue to grow, so that's good because we're going to need as many CCPs, CCAs, RPs, RPOs, C3PAOs. We're going to need as many as possible to get this flood of OSCs that are going to come along to get everything implemented and certified, in a timely manner. So that's good. There's over 366 final level 2 certifications that have been given out so far. So that's companies that have gone through and gotten their level 2 certification and have completed that and don't have an active POAM that they need to finish, right?
Small bite of the elephant, but it's progress.
Exactly. So at this point, there are 82 authorized C3PAOs to do the hundreds of thousands of of companies that need to have level 2 certifications, but there are about 82 of those right now. That's increasing. As we talked about a minute ago, the government shutdown could affect that by a couple of weeks or so, or whatever a government shutdown is, but not by much. So that should keep trudging along. The Cyber AB is starting up some advisory councils. I was going to put in to be on one of those, but my calendar is so full that I had the form halfway filled out, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to hold off for now. So maybe when the two-year term comes up, but they've got these settled now at this point, and these advisory councils. So there's one for C3POs, one for ESPs, one for there's a few different ones. I can't remember all the ones they are for, but those advisory councils are all set now, or at least the timeline to have your application in to be on one is all done. I believe they said that they're all set now, but those will be kicking off pretty soon. And then, believe it or not, there is some international expansion to CCP, CCAs, C3PAOs. There is an international component to that. So folks in Canada, folks in Australia, stuff like that can be part of the ecosystem. And there's nothing saying they can't. Those folks typically are not going to see COI. So if it's a type of COI that is dissemination restricted from foreign citizens, like ITAR, for instance, or no foreign, then it should be fine. They should just need to make sure that if when they do an on-site assessment for someone, that there's no COI out there for them to see, right? Or they need to make sure they follow their ITAR regulations as well. But that should all be okay. There was a question as to whether those foreign assessors could assess American companies, and the answer was yes, they can, with the caveat that I just talked about for the COI. So those are some of the main updates that came out. Some of the other updates that came out of the town hall.
I think that's it for today, guys. If you have any questions about what we covered, please reach out to us. We're here to help fast track your compliance journey. You can find our contact information at CMMCComplianceGuide.com. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, stay compliant, stay secure, and make sure to subscribe.